The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Rogers TV is providing coverage of the local campaign during this 2025 Ontario provincial election. Registered candidates in this riding were invited to Rogers TV and were given 5 questions in advance. Each candidate have been given 2 minutes to respond to each question. They are presented in alphabetical order. These are the candidates for the riding of Pickering-Uxbridge.
Hi, my name is Khalid Ahmed. I'm your Ontario NDP candidate for Pickering-Uxbridge. Been living here for over 15 years and ready to represent you in Queen's Park.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
There are actually few issues that are pressing in the riding, right? And I keep on hearing this every door that I go to. Number one, I would start with is healthcare. We do know there is a shortage of doctors. We do know that there is extremely long wait times at hospitals. Another problem is housing, affordable housing, I would say, first-time home buyers, and having families move into good homes. And number 3, I would say, is the traffic, making sure that congestion doesn't happen. So we cannot just build houses without the infrastructure, without having schools and roads, and making sure that we have a community and just not a house. People move into a home, not just a house.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
Threats are real. As soon as Donald Trump was elected, we knew that something is coming our way. And it is something really important. So the question I ask myself is, the past 7 years, was life affordable? And was things easy for Ontarians, for people in Pickering-Uxbridge? And then when Trump was elected, it was time to brace for impact. But what we've seen is Doug Ford and the Conservative just threw in the towel and called it a snap election. If tariffs are in place, we will ensure that we have a Premier's task force that's working with businesses and union leaders to make sure that our economy is strong. We will ensure that the jobs are protected, our auto sector is protected, which is heavily impacted in Durham. We will make sure that we could make new trade partners in other parts of the world, and also making sure that we have a trade agreements with inter-provinces, right? And number one, the most important thing is we should work as Team Canada without having disagreement. We should decide what we're going to do and take the challenge as it comes, right? But the truth be told, there will be impacts. There might be jobs lost. So what we will have to also do is work with the federal government to ensure that people that are affected by this tariff, there is some sort of supportive program. And these are things that NDP will bring forward and we will work towards.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
I mean, this is a problem that is not new to us. We knew under the Liberal government we had hallway medicine. People were already waiting 8 hours, 10 hours 7 years ago, right? 7 years later, the problem is worse. About 60,000 people in the riding do not have access to a family doctor at the moment. We need to hire more family doctors. So we need a plan that's immediate, hiring 3,500 doctors immediately, supporting them, having more residency spots open. But that also comes with providing care for patients and making sure that something that happened in Orchard Villa and Pickering during COVID never happens again. That also includes hiring nurses, 15,000 nurses in the next 3 years, hiring additional 13,000 doctors in the coming years. We do have the international talents. We do need to take out the red tape, make it easier for people to practice, and take out the red tape just so they could spend more time with patients rather than doing the paperwork. These are just few ways how we are going to help the problem immediately, long term, and obviously investing more in our healthcare system. We are so proud of having publicly funded healthcare, and we should keep that alive. What would you do to make housing
more accessible?
Housing is a huge problem. We know that young people cannot afford homes, and we need to have a government that's ready to invest back, invest in Ontarians and build more homes. Our plan includes building 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years. Out of that, 300,000 would be co-op housing, more affordable housing. That also goes in hand with having rent control, right? Making sure that rents just don't go skyrocketing high, and the people that own it, big corporations, are just gouging Ontarians. So having rent control, making 1.5 billion homes, making it easier for the builders to make homes across Ontario. But I also want to add, this doesn't have to be at the cost of on Greenbelt, right? We've seen backroom door deals where they were making plans to make homes on Greenbelt, said then they won't do it, and then went ahead and did it. Anyway, that shouldn't happen. There's plenty of room in the urban cities. We'll work with the cities and towns to make sure we could make affordable housing for all Ontarians.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
I mean, 407 it should be free. It should have had been. Honestly, it should have never been sold. We did see that under the Conservative Mike Harris government, 407 was sold. We are going to make it free. We are not going to make a fantasy tunnel under 401, which will cost I don't know how many billions of dollars and will take God knows how long, right? We need to make immediate action. Immediate action is making 407 free on day one. Within the first 100 days, you will see that happening. Also, investing more in public transit. We do know that there was extension of GO Transit in from Bowmanville to Kitchener, making sure that those things are funded. So there is easy accessibility for transit, supporting that, supporting the cities in infrastructures to make transit more affordable and easier, making 407 free. These are just some ways how we try to take away congestion throughout Ontario, especially impacting Pickering-Uxbridge.
These are the candidates for the riding of Ajax.
Hi, my name is Arthur Augustine, and I'm the candidate for the NDP for the riding of Ajax.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
There are several key issues, but one of them that strike out to me most of all is homelessness. When you travel down the streets of Ajax, you see so much homeless people living in encampment. It's heartbreaking. I do not understand how the current administration could allow this to continue. With a new government, say the NDP government and Merrick Stiles, we are going to build 60,000 new supportive housing units, allowing people living in encampment or shelter a system to move into a safe, permanent home while connecting with the mental health care, addiction treatment, and other ongoing support. This commitment is part of our broader Home Ontario plan. This plan will allow thousands of permanent affordable housing in the coming years. It's like Ajax residents will be able to find shelter easier and will not be forced to live on the streets as they are now. We are going to cut the red tapes and getting houses established. We're going to make housing more beneficial to those who need it. Shelters and stuff like that make it easier for people to be able to get into shelter. Work with the federal government, to boost programs and to help people out of shelter and into homes. Stop from losing their homes, stop people from losing their homes by bringing forward real protection for renters and also for homeowners. And that is our plan with the NDP for the homelessness in Ajax.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
An NDP government will defend jobs and people. We will partner with the Ontario employers and union to protect jobs now. Work with the trade exposed industries like the auto industry to provide direct support, creating new supply chains and finding new exports for their goods in Canada and abroad. Support the auto sector to bridge any interruption in production and preserve Canadian auto jobs. Promote interprovincial cooperation that will break down trade barriers. We're also going to be looking for other countries other than the U.S., who we can launch our programs, direct Ontario government-funded agencies to produce locally, negotiate with the federal government to support people whose livelihood would be impacted by the tariff. The tariff is we have to also fight back by taking an Ontario-first approach. By Ontario-first approach, we support Canadian goods, we support Ontario goods. All the province must work in a harmonious way to establish a unity whereby they don't have to depend on outside forces as much for their trade and for any kind of commerce. We have to make Ontario a strong, viable, tariff-proof province. We need to make Ontario strong so we can stand anything that comes in the coming months with this U.S. tariff that is looming like a dove over our heads. We have to make again Canada and Ontario strong. Thank you.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
I am amazed that any administration have allowed this kind of situation to continue or to even exist under the administration. Under a NDP, a Merit Styles administration, we will connect everyone to a family doctor. That is priority. We will and shall be, when we become in power, recruit and support 35,000 new doctors here in Ontario, including 150 specialists. We will establish the North Command Centre to manage capacity across the northern area. What we're going to also be doing, which I don't know why this exists, we'll have to cut the red tapes so that doctors can spend more time with their patients, not preparing paperwork. Oftentimes, doctors are forced to spend more time doing that than dealing with the patient. We're going to fast-track solutions in the first 100 days if we were to become government, make family health teams, shorter specialist wait times, and flexible care options. We also plan to clear the path for 13,000 internationally trained doctors to be ready to serve, and will increase the residency spot province-wide. Ontario deserves a government that will put public health and deliver real solutions. The NDP will invest $4.5 billion over 4 years to hire more doctors. Merit Styles and the Ontario NDP are on your side to make every Ontario have access to a family doctor.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
First, we will take again what I will call an Ontario approach towards housing. In 2024, 80,000 Ontarians experienced homelessness, a 25% increase since 2022. And this can double in the next 4 decades. We can no longer sit by while other governments spend money on wasteful management and not put it towards housing. We have to make housing more affordable for residents and also for homeowners. We have to cut the red tapes. We have to negotiate with builders and see what we can do to have what we call a like co-op style housing that is very much affordable for everyone, not just for the wealthy or for the people with high income. We have to make housing affordable to low income residents, and that our future generation, the young people, will be able to maintain a home. With the Marit Stiles government, that's what we have in plan to do, and we're going to stop people from losing their homes by bringing forward real protection for renters. Real protection for renters is making it easier for renters to be able to acquire a unit and not have to go through the long red tape that they have to go through in order to secure housing. We will have programs for housing benefits that help people out of the shelter into the homes. The Ford government has withheld funding for programs like the Canada, Ontario housing benefits, allowing shelters to overflow. We will work with the federal government to boost the program and help more people out of shelter and into homes.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
The NDP government would make the 407 free for all users by bringing the highway back under public control. We have lost control of the highway. We will take the cost of the toll for truck drivers on day one, getting Ontario made goods moving freely and free up space on the 401. Within 100 days, Marit Stiles will do what Doug Ford has failed to do: negotiate with the 407 ETR leaseholders to close the books on the long regretted public sell-off and end the toll for good. This is what's needed for people in my community more so. People would have a sustainable option to go to work. They would not be forced to just take the 401 only. By providing provincial funding, we will be able to be able to put conditions that the roads will be easily accessible, convenient and affordable for riders. In every community, we will deliver long-delayed GO Rails expansion, also the expansion from Kitchener to Niagara to Bowmanville. That was very long needed. That transit system, we will work with the federal government to connect more communities and get cars off the road by making traffic congestion less congested. This is what needed to ease the 407 by also bringing the transit system, as I've mentioned before. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Serjanik, your Ontario Liberal Party candidate in Ajax.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
So something that I hear a lot about is healthcare in the town of Ajax. It's something that's top of mind for many. Half the folks in Ajax don't have access to a family doctor, and the half that do, a third of them, their family doctor is over the age of 60, so they're at risk of losing their family doctor. I've had people reach out to me telling me their stories of accessing the emergency department and the struggles that they faced in finding care, including some folks that have told me that they've been waiting more than 12 hours at the emergency room. It's something that, frankly, is unacceptable here in Ajax and in Ontario and really in Canada. People shouldn't have to be struggling to find the care that they need. So that's why, as part of my campaign and the Ontario Liberal Party, our main focus is healthcare. It's getting back to basics. It's doing the things that we need to be doing well again here in Ajax and in Ontario. And that means ensuring everyone has access to a family doctor. That means bringing down the ER wait times and investing in the healthcare system, because, we're seeing nurses leaving the profession. We're seeing other healthcare workers leave. And that is just further eroding the healthcare system and the cracks that we're seeing. It's getting deeper and deeper. So when I'm going around and talking to people in Ajax, that's what I hear. They're concerned and they want to see action and leadership, because frankly, over the last 7 years, this government, they haven't gotten it done. So that's the main issue that I hear in Ajax. There's a lot of others, of course, affordability, cost of living. And that's why we'll take the HST off your home heating and hydro. And that's why we'll introduce a middle-class tax cut that will help families that are struggling with the cost of groceries, food, housing, and other areas. And we have a real plan to make a difference to ensure that more people have access to affordable housing here in Ajax, but also all across Ontario.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
Thanks for the question. It's a really important question because, we have this election campaign going on in Ontario right now, definitely with that backdrop, but a lot of the other issues that we're facing. And quite frankly, an election shouldn't have been called in the first place. As Ontario Liberals, we went to Doug Ford and we said, we want to support you. We want to work together as Ontarians. Doug wasn't interested in that. He was interested in dividing us and frankly, trying to take advantage of the tariff situation and Donald Trump in the U.S. to try and grab a little bit more power for himself. So that's why, we're asking for your help to send Doug Ford a message and tell him enough is enough. In terms of dealing with the tariffs, we have a very strong plan, one of which includes the Fight Tariffs Fund, where we'll be able to make low-cost financing available to businesses and industry to help deal with the shock of tariffs should they come into place. And that's an important note because we don't know what side of the bed Donald Trump is going to wake up on. So we will be ready as Ontario Liberals, but we want to work together as all Ontarians, as a Team Ontario approach and a Team Canada approach, because that's really what it should be. In addition, we'll ensure that stimulus spending is on what we need in our communities. That means new hospitals, new schools, new roads, public transit, things that are going to benefit us in Ajax and in Ontario. And frankly, we won't be wasting money like this current government has done, and we'll ensure every dollar that's spent is spent to benefit Ontario workers, to benefit people. In addition, I want to bring back doctors from the United States and use that as part of our plan as well to appeal to their patriotism. And there's a lot more that as Ontario Liberals that we are ready and prepared to do. We want to reduce interprovincial trade barriers. And frankly, again, we all need to be working together, not dividing folks. We've seen with Doug Ford, he's divided us. We're going to work together.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
Thanks. And when I'm talking to people in Ajax, the ones that I do talk to and they say they have a family doctor, sometimes they're family doctors down the road in Scarborough or in Oshawa or in other places, maybe where they worked before or where they used to live before. And they were afraid of losing their family doctor. So they just kept their family doctor where it was. And for some, that works for them. But for a lot of others, it doesn't. And I hear that they want to have a family doctor close to home. So we have a very strong plan. And we're the only party that has the best plan to deliver a family doctor for everyone in Ontario, and we're going to commit to do that within 4 years. That's right, 4 years, and that's going to be job number one, focus number one, not a lot of these other distractions that we've seen with this current government, and we're going to do that by recruiting and training internationally trained doctors who are well qualified, who need some extra support and maybe a little extra training in order to do that here in Ontario. We're going to expand the medical school spaces that we currently have and also open new medical schools. We'll be eliminating fax machines and the costly duplication. Something that I hear a lot is that when you're on your roster at your family doctor, you can't access care at a walk-in clinic because you may be then at risk of losing that doctor. We're going to get rid of that. In today's day and age, people need to be able to access the care when they need it. So we're going to get rid of that. And in addition, we want to do team-based care with evening, weekend appointments, providing more flexibility for folks in accessing their family doctor, but also their healthcare system. We have a strong healthcare team. We have an emergency room physician on our team, former head of a hospital, the former head of the Ontario Medical Association, and nurses running with us as well. We've got a really strong healthcare-focused team, frankly, that I think is the best out of all the parties. And we're going to be ready on day one to deliver on this commitment to ensure that you have a family doctor within 4 years. Thank you.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
Thanks. And this is such an important question, especially for those who might be unhoused or in frankly unsuitable housing right now, or are young people that tell me that they're worried about being able to afford a home one day. So as Ontario Liberals, we have a comprehensive plan in order to address that. And number one, we're going to take the expensive taxes and fees off of new construction, and that's up to $170,000 off the cost of a new home, because construction prices are going up. Other aspects of home building are going up, but it's the government taxes and fees that we're making purchasers pay, and that's not right. So we're going to change that and fix that so that a new home will be affordable to you. We're going to double the amount of supportive housing for folks in Ajax and across Ontario in order to help those who are unhoused. It's an issue that I hear quite a bit about in the community. People are concerned about the population, and we can do a lot more in order to fix that. And that also means working as your local representative to bring together community, to bring together faith groups, to bring together business, nonprofit, and the other levels of government and work together to come up with and develop other solutions locally within Ajax in order to get people off the street. And the best way to do that, frankly, is a safe and affordable place to call home. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to be focused on that. My background is in housing policy. I've done a lot of work on this file, and I really hope to be able to do that within Ajax, Durham region, and also to help the people of Ontario, because it is one of the biggest crisis points that we're facing in our province, and the cost of living continues to go up. We're also going to we're also going to put in phased rent control in order to help folks who are renting, and also have a rental support fund as well who are at risk of being evicted. We're ready to do it. Let's do it.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
Thanks. It's an important question. We have the 407 in the north end, absolutely. We also have the 401. We also have local and regional roads as well, and GO trains that run through Durham region and into Ajax. When it comes to the 407, our government is going to look at what is the best way in order to help commuters, also in the most cost-effective way as well. Some of the proposals that the other parties have put forward, frankly, are unrealistic. They're not feasible, they're not doable, and will rack on a lot of debt for not only us, but also future generations. So we'll be looking at that. And I think one option that's really worth exploring is moving truck traffic off the 401 and onto the 407. So we're going to do that in order to respect the taxpayer, because that's the other thing that we hear, is taxes continue to go up and up, and we need to be responsible in our spending and our approach. Number two, for me in Ajax, I'm going to fight to bring back the express GO service, because we used to have that, and now it's gone. And that's something that I know for many commuters who are going into downtown, it's an important and easier way for them to do that. In addition, I'll be working hard to ensure that the electrification of the GO corridor takes place, because that means we can get trains to start and stop faster at stations and be able to put more trains on the line while having less pollution in our community as well. Something else that I hear a lot about is how do we connect to the GO, but also throughout Durham. And I think that lies with the province supporting our municipalities more, and in particular the region and Durham Region Transit. That's something that if we can do that well, we can also encourage more people to take public transit when it makes sense, because sometimes public transit doesn't always work for us, but there are other times where it is a really good and viable solution to get around. So we need to be supporting our transit agencies more with that, and that's something that I'll bring to the table at Queen's Park within my party and in the legislature.
These are the candidates for the riding of Whitby.
Hi, I am Roger Gordon, the Ontario Liberal candidate for the riding of Whitby.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
Okay, the key priorities for Whitby, as like many of the riding across Ontario, is healthcare. Healthcare is the number one issue for people in Ontario, and just like a lot of places, healthcare is the key priority for Whitby. Doug Ford was elected as Premier to end the all-way medicine, and he has not delivered for the people of Ontario or Whitby. If I'm elected in this riding, I will, follow the platform that Bonnie has put forward to end hallway medicine in Ontario hospitals. She also promised to work on the infrastructure of our healthcare system and building new hospital. And building of the hospital in Whitby is a number one priority. It's been promised for years since I've lived in Whitby, and there have not been a lot of movement on that process. Doug Ford and Lauren Coe has dragged their feet on this file, and I think if I'm elected in this riding, I'll definitely work tirelessly to fix the healthcare system and speed up the process of building the hospital here in Whitby. It's long overdue. The land has been approved. The government needs to speed up this process, and that's what I'll do for the town of Whitby if elected. As far as providing more care in the hospital, we need to also invest in providing more doctors, more nurses for our hospital, and stop the privatization of our healthcare system.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
On the issue of tariffs that has been threatened by the United States government, the question itself asks if the United States imposed tariffs on Canada, what would we do? It's a hypothetical question. That's the question that Doug Ford has used to call this election. Even though the tariffs have been threatened, they have still not been imposed on our country yet. And yet, Doug Ford has called this election and using the justification for this election. It is wrong. Doug Ford has said he would have supported Donald Trump in the election of November last year. And now he's backtracking and trying to play that he's Mr. Canada and fighting the tariffs. There's no tariffs. He has called an unnecessary election in the middle of winter, and tariffs are not good. It will definitely choke off our economy. It would definitely slow the growth of our economy. People will lose their job. As a history teacher, looking back at what happened in the 1920s, 1930s Great Depression, tariffs was a big part of that, economic downturn, and it would not be good. But yes, don't get me wrong. It's a danger to our economy, and Doug Ford has supported a leader in the United States that has, threatened Canada with tariffs from a long time ago, and he was out there earlier on saying he would have supported Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Doug Ford are the two of the same politician. I can't trust them. There's a saying that's birds of a feather flock together.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
The shortage of family doctor is a big part of, the healthcare problem that we have here in Ontario. It's not unique to Whitby alone. As we saw in Walkerton there a couple of months ago, we had hundreds of people line up for a family doctor. And in some of our other communities, the problem is even more severe than it is here in Whitby. But yes, it is not a unique problem to Whitby alone. It's across Ontario. Bonnie Crombie and the Liberals has promised that we will find family doctors for every families in Ontario within 4 years. And I believe, if we're elected government, we can do this. We can make this happen. The outline of this promise is listed there as one of our major policy announcement, and you can go to the Ontario Liberal website and get more details on how we are going to create and retain doctors in the province of Ontario so that families can get the service that they need. Under Doug Ford, he has cut the funding for recruiting doctors, for providing a healthcare system that is needed for the public, so that we can have a strong public-funded healthcare system.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
Our government would eliminate the provincial land transfer taxes for first-time home buyers and for seniors downsizing. We also would scrap the development charges on a new middle-class housing. When it comes to support for homelessness and prevention, our government would invest in programs that prevent homelessness before it happens, such as increasing funding for mental health services. Some of the people that are homeless are also struggling with addiction and mental health issues. Ensuring that those struggling with these issues have access to support is essential for reducing homelessness on the long-term level.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
Okay, our government would invest more in our transit system here in Durham. Not only the 407 is an issue, busing is an issue, the issue of the train out to Bowmanville, the GO train out to Bowmanville, that's also part of the plan. By investing in the public transportation system, would definitely ease some of the traffic problems in the region. The issue related to the 407, yes, the 407, an highway that was built by taxpayers and sold off by the Conservative government, would definitely solve some of the problem by removing the tolls from the 407. Doug Ford has made promises in the past for this region, and this time around he's doing the same thing by making a promise to remove the toll just before the election. He has been elected government for 7 years. He had the opportunity to remove the tolls in 2018, in 2022, and he had not done so. He's doing it now as, again, one of those election bribes that he's putting forward. I would not trust the Conservative government when it comes to traffic. His idea and his plan of tunneling under the 401 is also seem like a gimmick. It's not a real solution to the problems of traffic and for this region. Our government, if elected, will invest in our public transportation system, would, work on and extending the GO trains to Bowmanville and to provide real solution for the people of Durham.
Hi, my name is Jamie Nye. I am the NDP candidate for the Whitby riding.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
As I see it, the number one issue facing Whitby in this campaign, overwhelmingly so, is the healthcare crisis, specifically the new hospital in Whitby. The Lake Ridge Health Master Plan calls for 1,000 new beds to be installed in the next 15 years, given the population growth. Right now, the hospital, the Lake Ridge Health, has 893 beds. It runs at about 105% capacity, which leads to hallway medicine. And Whitby Hospital itself does not have an emergency room services. The present government started the planning of this hospital sometime in the last couple of years, and they say it'll take 10 years to get it built. I believe that the NDP could get this built a lot quicker. In fact, since we need 1,000 new beds at 300 beds a crack, if it was up to me, I would start building 2 hospitals right now.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
in this moment, the U.S. government is imposing tariffs on the people of Ontario, which will affect our economy, affect our way of life. Now, to respond to this, the NDP would take two approaches. First one being diplomacy, and the second one would be to tariff-proof our province. Now, diplomacy comes in two buckets. First being soft diplomacy, second being hard diplomacy. Soft diplomacy is the conversations that you keep open, the relationships you have with the Americans at all levels of government. Just to be ready for when you find a chink in their armor that you can make a deal. Hard diplomacy, unfortunately, is the dollar-for-dollar tariffs that we would install. The truth of the matter is that we have manufactured goods and natural resources that the Americans simply cannot do without. And I believe in a passage of time, they will come to realize that, and they will come back to change the deal. And when they do that, the NDP will be here to make the deal.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
Well, our healthcare system is in a crisis. This is true. We are without thousands of doctors across the province. What our party plans on doing is hiring and retaining 3,500 new doctors for the province of Ontario. Bringing them in. What we have in Ontario is thousands of foreign-trained doctors whose credentials are not what is acceptable by the Ontario government. We plan to bring forth an accountable, responsible way to get these people accredited so they can work in our province. As far as retention goes, we would like the idea of developing these integrated health teams. And what that would mean is you get an office with a number of doctors inside, and all sharing the resources, cut down on the red tape, cut down on the paperwork, and get back to patient outcomes. It's about building community, and we believe that Whitby is a fine place to live, and that the doctors would all love working here in our community.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
The only way to make housing more affordable in any riding is to build more houses. Take pressure off the demand. So NDP proposes to build 1.5 million homes over the next 10 years, 300,000 of which will be not-for-profit, co-op, made permanently affordable. This takes the pressure off the homes and off the housing prices with the added supply. The other thing we would do for housing is impose rent controls on apartment buildings. These would be on the building, so it doesn't matter which tenant is coming in or going out, the price on that rent would not change. With our housing, we'd also like to tackle the homeless issue. What we would do there is start from a housing first viewpoint and get these people housed and provide them, after they're in a home, with the wraparound supports so they can get on their feet and get their lives back in shape.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
To ease the transit issues in this region, our government proposes to take 50% of the operating costs of the local transit systems. The province has been downloading those costs for too long. We believe it's time to help pay. On day one, the 407, tolls for trucks will be removed, moving a lot of that traffic, truck traffic, up to the highway immediately. And we will work on taking the tolls off that highway by some deal, could be a buy or a lease of the highway in the future. One issue we have in Whitby is the GO station is usually getting parking there is terrible, and traffic in the morning is really not pleasant. This all stems from the fact that the 3 stations from Bowmanville heading east have yet to be built. If we could build those stations, we would stop that inflow of traffic, of the cars, and the congestion that happens in our downtown, when we could have GO stations, parking lots, all just east of here in Bowmanville that should already be built.
These are the candidates for the riding of Oshawa.
Hi guys, my name is Viresh Bansal. I am the riding candidate for Oshawa from Liberal Party.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
If you would ask me, we have tons of issues going on in Oshawa, okay? Rather it be housing crisis, medical crisis are really big here, okay? We have the industrial crisis, business crisis. We also have the transportation crisis here. With Liberals, we have got tons of plans to deal with these issues. For starters, I would say housing crisis. We have a plan to get rid of the taxes for land transfer tax for the first-time home buyers. That will save like $13,500 on an average for every single buyer. When it comes to the medical expenses, we have a plan to increase the budget for medical so that we can hire more doctors and nurses, and we pledge to get all the Ontario citizens to have a doctor, so that they don't have to wait in the lines for hours. Like we have the system right now, people are waiting for lines in hours to get a doctor. That should not be the case. You need a doctor, you will get it right away. Okay? And when it comes to the connectivity of Oshawa, I see GO Transit plays a really big role in it. And my plan is to get a direct GO Transit services from Toronto to Oshawa so that it cuts down the travel time by 30 minutes. From Toronto to Oshawa, maybe in like 30 or 40 minutes max, you will be here. These are the key points that I'm bringing in. And one of my favorite points is bringing in the business to Oshawa. I have seen that Oshawa is big. It's a really amazing city. And if we could bring in businesses here, it would be even amazing.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
If U.S. puts tariff on Canada, we will hit hard. We will hit back with tariffs. Canada, it's dependent upon our energy sector for the power. We can bring them to dark, but we will not do it. We are good people. We are good Canadians. Rather, we'll have another solution. We'll fight the tariffs. We will reduce our dependency on US by Make in Canada campaign. We will manufacture everything in Canada. We will provide incentives to businesses and industries so that they can hire more people, bring more innovation, and manufacture in-house. We will try our best to reduce our imports from US and manufacture as much as we can in Canada. Apart from that, our cities are designed in a way we can develop industries. We just need a little motivation. With this Trump's tariff, we got motivation. We will give money into the industries as well as into the businesses so that we can make this Make in Canada a success. Apart from that, we have the potential to make here. We have all the raw material available here. We have funds, we have land, we have property, we have everything. You just name it. We don't need to be reliant on US. And apart from the tariffs, if there are tariffs coming in, we have a way around. Like, people are scared right now, oh, tariffs comes, we're going to lose our jobs. No, there will be a new opportunities coming in. With Ontario Liberals, rest assured, you're safe. We have a way out here, and we'll deal with it.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
Okay, so first of all, the medical situation in Ontario is at its all-time low, and it's getting worse right now. With Ontario Liberals, we have a very simple plan. We'll invest in hospitals and really good doctors so that every Ontarians have a family doctor to attend. We are going to invest in a model same like Lake Ridge hospitals. We're going to develop more Lake Ridge hospitals in almost all cities of Ontario. We're going to attract doctors and nurses from other countries and other cities, other provinces, so that every Ontarian can be attended a doctor. No more fax lines. Because I know it hurts to wait hours to see a doctor. I've been into the same situation. I'm a father and a husband. We all three went sick. I've been into the family doctor area for hours just to see a doctor for cold. And I know it hurts. Healthcare is our top priority. We need to get every Ontarian the best doctors, the best medical facility available. We will try our best. You don't have to wait, because waiting doesn't make sense, because time won't stop, right? So that's the reason we are going to invest the best possible in the Lake Ridge hospitals, as well as in doctors, as well as in nurses. We need them. And we are going to try our best to make the best medical facilities in all over Canada. We may one day be like, okay, we have a medical issue, let's go to Ontario and get ourselves fixed.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
So housing is a dream of every individual to have their own housing on their head. And we will try our best to make it simpler for each and every individual. And there's a lot of plans we have. First of the plan is we're going to remove the property tax, land transfer tax from all the new house purchases for a first-time home buyer. On an average, it will put down like $13,500 into a first-time home buying individual's pocket. Apart from that, our plan is to remove the developmental charges, because that doesn't make sense. And that's going to save like $170K in a brand new residence. People can do whatever they want to do with that money. And for the renters, we are also covering renters for this situation. We have an emergency renters fund available, and we're going to distribute it in case of an emergency, so that they don't get like a landlord cannot ask them to leave the property. That fund will cover them in that situations. Apart from that, I know buying a house is never easy, but we will try our best to make it as easy as possible. At least for the first house, that's a basic right of every individual to have their own housing on their head. So we will try our best to get it done for them. And when housing is very emotional for me as well, when I bought for my first house, it was not easy for me also. So that I know the pain. So that's the reason we're going to make it as easy as possible for you guys.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
We have tons of issues. Durham is growing, and we are facing a few traffic issues here. But since the old government built a highway and decided to sell it off for a profit, there is a lot we can still do. Okay, we can make parallel connections. If we are able to come to a deal to buy a 407, we will buy it. Discounts doesn't make sense, because eventually you will be paying from your pocket. And to access a highway, why should we pay from our pocket? We'll rather take a road. There are tons of constructive ways we have. We can build a parallel highway. Okay, we are not going to dig a tunnel like Doug Ford. We come with the practical solutions. Okay, and the practical solution is to either get a new highway, buy 407, make 407 free. Okay, there are tons of solutions. Apart from the traffic issue, I have seen that our transit system is also not good. We will try our best to make the transit system the best so that people are less reliant on their own vehicles and use a public transit, and we will make it more faster for people. Apart from that, we are already working on a Go Transit plan to have a direct connection from Oshawa to Toronto so that we can reduce our commute time by half an hour at least. And there are more solutions on the way. We are working on them, and we are working on finalizing the solutions. We are studying them. We are taking public opinions also on what to do and what not to do here. And we will all in this together, and we will come up with a solution. And that solution is going to be the best solution available in the market.
I am Jennifer French, and I am the NDP candidate here in Oshawa.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
The key priorities have been coming up loudly and clearly at the doors. Folks are talking about housing, the lack of safe and affordable housing and stability when it comes to housing, the lack of real rent control. The cost of living is going up. Things that used to be free or affordable aren't anymore. And another thing that I have been hearing at the doors really has been about healthcare, this creeping privatization. You know, we've got We've had a premier in Doug Ford that has been allowing that privatization in our healthcare system, agency nursing. We're seeing our hospitals undermined, and people are telling real stories about wait times, not being able to see specialists. They have been talking about the cost that they're paying for user fees at their doctors, and those are some of the real conversations that we're having at the doors. So I would say cost of living, I would say housing, and certainly an erosion of our public services that we depend on.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
Well, the question of tariffs and the threat of such instability with our relationship with the states is weighing heavily on everyone. Certainly out in the community, there's a rising level of anxiety and uncertainty. And it reminds me of what our community went through in 2018 when General Motors was abandoning our community. And we were also abandoned by the then Premier Doug Ford, who said that the ship has left the dock, and gave me heck for peddling false hope. But we stood together as a community, and I think that we're going to have to, whatever comes, we've got to ensure that we come together as a country, that the next government, hopefully an NDP government, but the next government works with all levels, federal, municipal. We have to ensure that we have a plan for income protection, that we have a plan for investing in industry, that we work with industry, we work with workers to ensure that we protect the jobs that we have. And then we also have to look to the future. We have to continue to be competitive, and that means investing in healthcare and education. We need an educated, skilled, healthy workforce. That has always given us a competitive edge, and we have always built the best products on the continent. And so we do have to have an immediate plan to come together, to invest, to do what it takes, to all be rowing in that same direction, but then also looking forward. And I'll say something else. Our community office does a lot of heavy lifting in the community, supporting folks. And if things don't get easier and if things get harder, we do need those community supports. We need compassionate work, and the government needs to be investing in agencies that do a lot of that compassionate work in the community. So working with all partners to support this community in such uncertain times.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
I'm very glad to be able to talk about healthcare. It's on a lot of folks' mind as we've been door knocking, and the last couple of years serving as the member of provincial parliament for Oshawa. We have had so many people lose access to a family doctor, others who just can't get it. Some of the plans that we have as the NDP moving forward is to do what doctors have been asking us, to free up more of their time to work with patients, to see more patients. They've asked for admin support and to hire more admin staff so that they can see more patients, that's a piece of it, but we need to hire more doctors, ensure that more people are actually going into those residency spots, funding more residency spots, ensuring that those who go into family medicine continue on that path and find themselves in the community. So we're lucky here in Oshawa. Lake Ridge Health has partnered with Queen's University, and we have students here, but we hope that they will continue on those paths. And that means when young doctors or would-be doctors tell us they can't afford to open their own practice, that they want to be part of a family health team that has nurse practitioners, doctors, and the resources. Those are very successful models, and that takes government leadership and investment, and we've made that commitment to do that. But I also think there are a lot of folks that could be practicing medicine, but because they're internationally trained, there are so many barriers in the way. And I think being very thoughtful and purposeful in removing those barriers and figuring out what they are to ensure that more medically trained professionals can get into the field and practice, because we desperately need it. But it comes down to, we want to invest in public health care. Agency nurses are bleeding dollars into the private systems, and we need to strengthen our publicly funded, publicly delivered healthcare system.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
Thank you. There has been a lot of interest in housing, because whether folks are looking for a new home, whether folks are trying to stay housed, they're couch surfing, there is such instability when it comes to housing. So the NDP has committed to building 250,000 new homes over 10 years, and that would be affordable and non-market homes, we're not talking about McMansions. We're talking about supportive housing, wraparound services as needed. Everybody needs to be housed. Some folks need addiction support, community support in order to be successful and to be housed, and that requires investment as well. But a lot of the people that I have been talking to in apartments here in Oshawa, they're very nervous that they can't stay housed. So bringing back real rent control. And what that means is that we need to have strict regulations so that rent can't climb up, that these above guideline increases that are hanging over people's heads can't force them out of their homes. We're seeing rent evictions. We see such a terrible backlog in the landlord-tenant board. That has been totally messed up by this last government. That's a longer conversation, but we do need resolution, whether it's landlord, whether it's tenant. The system is in such a mess right now that people don't get the justice that they need. So first, we need to keep people housed if they have housing. We need to ensure that we are building appropriate and affordable housing, and fundamentally getting the government back into the business of building homes. When we think about after wartime, we saw these massive leadership and investments and initiatives to house people. I think that is what is needed here, bold and purposeful initiatives to ensure that folks can have a place to live and trust that they can stay there.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
Thank you. I have had the opportunity to serve as the official opposition critic for infrastructure, transportation, highways now for about 4 years. And I was very pleased to serve in that role, and also back in 2018 to bring forward a private member's bill to remove the tolls from the 412 and 418. It took 4 years of chasing the Conservatives, but we as a community were successful in having those tolls removed. But that's not enough. The 407 East is the provincial portion. It's still provincially owned, and it's the only toll road, and it only affects Durham region. So we have called for the removal of that for a long time, echoing the region of Durham. We've talked about taking the tolls off the 407 for trucks to move them from the 401 to the 407, and that's been a non-starter with this government. Marit Stiles and the NDP have said that we are going to work with the 407 ETR, with that company, to ensure that we can have a toll-free drive on the 407 for everyone. That's something that I've asked Doug Ford in the legislature, and they've danced around it, but they have not even opened those conversations. And that is something that was a public roadway sold for a song by the Conservatives, a totally bad deal, but we've seen a lot of those. And so working to bring that back to toll-free for all Ontarians. We have got to look at moving people, and when we have the 401 that is such a mess, and the 407 could be differently utilized, that absolutely has to be a priority. And I'll tell you what we're not going to do. We're not going to go ahead and build a 401 tunnel and dig up underneath the 401. That's a pipe dream of the Premier, but what we need to be doing is focusing on getting people moving, investing in public transit, and ensuring that we are best utilizing our existing public infrastructure.
Hi, my name is Rahul Padmini Saumian. I am your independent candidate for the riding of Oshawa.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
As far as I'm concerned, I've been living in Oshawa for 8 years, and for my work, I do commute to Toronto. So to me, having proper stable jobs in Oshawa will be my highest priority. And as your MPP, I'm committed in the creation of a special economic zone for Oshawa. So what I mean by that is we will have a designated zone in Oshawa where we will have world-class companies come in, set up their offices, and that thereby we will have more job opportunities for our people in Oshawa. So we can reach out to so many companies around the world. There are so many Fortune 500 companies that we can reach out to. And I believe if we are able to convince them that we will give them the right opportunities, the right infrastructure, and the right incentives, they would be more than happy to open their offices and operations in Oshawa. And in this aspect, I don't see any significant efforts being done in the last 8 years that I have been in Oshawa. I would like to see efforts from the current MPP who have been representing the riding for the last 10 years in terms of meaningful job creation for our residents. I have not seen that. So it is my word and it is my promise to the residents that I will be working on this front so that our residents and our future generation can get access to meaningful jobs and well-paying jobs so that they can support their daily livelihoods in a better manner. That's my key priority issue in the riding of Oshawa. Thank you.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
Yeah, so if the U.S. tariffs are coming into practice, it is my promise to the residents of Oshawa and Ontarians that myself nor the government that I support will be calling for an early election. We will not be abandoning you people. You have elected me to lead you in difficult times. So it is my promise that if the tariffs comes into effect, we will be looking for ways to mitigate this. We will be looking for alternate trade routes. It is not that we only have to trade with the US. We should be looking at more opportunities for interprovincial trade. We should be looking for more unexplored markets like maybe doing business with Africa or more with the Europe and maybe with Asian continents as well. So the opportunities are endless. We should not be limited, or we should not be frightened with the concept that the US has imposed tariffs and this is the end of everything. There are alternative solutions that we can think about, and I will be working closely with all the stakeholders to make sure that trade, if at all impacted, we can come back stronger and faster with least impact. That's my promise. Thank you.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
Thank you for the question. So it's a real sad fact that 2.5 million families in Ontario are still waiting for their family physicians. I have had conversations with some of the experts in the field, also physicians, and the fact is that the population of the area has increased drastically in the last 10 years or so, and the number of doctors has not kept up to pace with the same way that the population has increased. And when I check with the experts in the field, there is a large number of internationally trained physicians that is available in Ontario, and they are waiting for their equivalency or the qualifications to be met at par with the Ontario standards. So it's almost 1,500 in number, and we will work with the legislations and the College of Physicians to make sure that if we can do something to fast track their acceptance into Ontario standards so that they can get access to patients and the shortage can be addressed in one way from that aspect. There is another way of trying to increase the number of intakes into the med schools that we have currently in the province. So if we increase the number of seats in med schools, that will also bring in like another additional 100 or so doctors on a yearly basis. So that is also something that I'll be working together with all the decision makers and stakeholders. So in that way, over a period of 3 to 5 years, we can address the shortage of family doctors and physicians. Thank you.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
Yeah, this is another important issue that our riding residents are facing. I'll answer it in two parts. So home affordability in terms of being able to buy a house. Most residents or most young families these days, they find it really difficult to buy a house because the prices are too high. So there are like long-term solutions and short-term solutions that we should look into this. Short-term solutions will be that we will look into like a one-time grant for young families that are finding it difficult to come up with a down payment for a home, so that they can be able to afford a house more easily. And there is the long-term issue that the supply of housing should be increased in like a responsible manner. So that is also something that will be worked in a long-term solution aspect. Coming to homelessness, my belief in this area is that homelessness doesn't happen overnight. So there is like a series of events or situations that lead to somebody being homeless. It may be economic reasons, it may be like social reasons, mental health reasons. So that area has to be addressed is one of my key promises, that residents will have access to better mental health support if they are facing some kind of crisis. They will have proper guidance and proper access to mental health professionals to make sure that their issues and concerns are addressed. Along with that, a combination of economic steps that we will be taking to make sure that the economic situation of families are improved. So in combination of all of these steps, all these issues can be addressed. Thank you.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
While it is true that 407 solves a little bit of congestion problems in the area for people who can afford it, but most of the residents are finding it difficult because the cost is too high. So my solution to this transit problem would be a combination of various areas. Like there is like rail transit that we can look at improving for commuters who will be traveling from Oshawa to downtown Toronto. So the number of trains that goes from Toronto to Oshawa would be increased, that too in an eco-friendly manner. Like there is diesel usage, which is not a really good idea to run commuter trains when the whole world is moving towards electrifications. We should also think about aspects of running trains on electricity. So that is one thing. Then we can think about adding like light rail transit from the central Oshawa station to the major parts of the city, like the northeast end of the town, where the population increase has been seen drastically in the last 5-10 years. So we can think about shuttle buses or LRTs that connect different populated areas of Oshawa to the main central GO station. And along with that, from a highway access standpoint, I believe that the entry points into 401 are heavily congested these days due to population increase. So I will be committed to working towards another access point into 401 from our town, maybe beyond Harmony and Bloor exit. So we need to think about adding another access point into 401. So when we combine all of these aspects, I think the transit problems in our area can be addressed. Thank you.
These are the candidates for the riding of Durham.
My name is Chris Borgia, and I am the NDP candidate for the riding of Durham.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
The key priorities for the riding of Durham are the same for all Ontarians: healthcare, education, and housing. The Conservative government has wasted the last 7 years, their entire time in office, on making money for their rich friends and destroying our healthcare system. The NDP has a lot of ground to make up for the mistakes of the Ford government. But if the people of Durham put their trust in me, I know that the NDP and myself can make it work to do better for Ontario.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
The NDP is going to fight back against Trump's bully tactics with our Team Canada approach. We're not going to give in to division, as many are trying to push here in Canada and Ontario. Solidarity is our best strength. We'll support Canada's federal tariff response. We'll break down trade barriers to promote interprovincial cooperation. We're going to launch a Buy Ontario and Buy Canada campaigns. And we're going to further invest in local training and development, especially within the skilled trades.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
My own doctor brought this to my attention as a medical professional himself. He's really concerned. The current and previous governments have put in so much red tape, penalties, bureaucratic process that it's forcing doctors to have to take away time from patient care to deal with this. This, coupled with the increased overhead, has greatly deterred a lot of new doctors from wanting to come in and become general practitioners. They're usually moving toward the side of specialists. The NDP has on their platform incentives to bring more GPs and nurse practitioners into Ontario to improve our healthcare system. We know this needs to be fixed. The governments that created this problem are not the ones who are going to fix this, but I know the NDP is going to fix this.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
The NDP has already developed a plan to build more affordable homes with the intention to preserve what makes Durham beautiful. We've had the lowest production of homes since the late 1950s. All of this allowed under a government that is currently under investigation by the RCMP for their hand in the Greenbelt scandal. The developers control production of homes, and this allows the developers to play a supply and demand game to maximize their profits. The NDP recognizes that this is not okay for Ontarians because we deserve better. So it's the Ontario NDP's plan to build and develop more homes, especially affordable homes, in places where working class people live, so we can live and work without having to deal with massive commutes that we already experience in this province.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
Actions speak louder than words. The people of Durham region went to NDP MPP Jennifer French in Oshawa because they know NDP MPPs get the job done. Jennifer French introduced Bill 43 to remove tolls on Highway 412 and 418. Yes, the government may have taken credit for it, but we know it was an NDP MPP. We've already introduced our plan to remove tolls on the 407 upon election. We're going to continue with these initiatives to bring better to the people of Durham, to bring better to the people of Ontario, because we deserve better. We deserve an NDP government.
Hi, I'm Brad Jacobson. I'm running as the Liberal candidate for the Durham riding.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
It's got to be healthcare, education, and the cost of living. I see every day how families are struggling. The cost of everything, housing, groceries, gas, is through the roof. Electricity bills are the highest they've ever been. And when you do need healthcare, you're stuck waiting for hours in the ER. Look, I don't know everything about healthcare. I'm just a regular guy running for office. But what I do know is we need to make life more affordable and fix healthcare. The Ontario Liberals will bring back rent control, help first-time home buyers, and invest in healthcare so you and your family can actually get the care you need when you need it.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
Here's the thing. Durham is home to some of the hardest working farmers and manufacturers in the country. The folks in Scugog and North Clarington don't back down from a challenge, but unfair U.S. tariffs are making it harder to compete and put jobs at risk. I'm running as a Liberal in my very first election because I did my research, and I think the Ontario Liberals have a real plan to help. The plan is to cut taxes and put $1,150 back in your pocket, while fighting to protect local jobs and keeping Ontario's economy strong. That's what it all boils down to for me. Making sure families in Durham can make ends meet and businesses can keep their doors open.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
Bonnie Crombie and the Ontario Liberals have a plan to fix health care. And it's about time. We're going to make sure every person in Ontario has a family doctor, and we're going to put an end to hallway medicine and invest in local hospitals like the one in Bowmanville. We're making sure you can book appointments in the evenings and on weekends. Plus, we'll train and bring in more doctors and nurses so you don't have to wait forever to get the care that you need and deserve.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
Owning a home shouldn't be this hard. It's just not right. First-time buyers and seniors are getting squeezed out of the market, and rents keep going up. Here's what we'll do. We'll scrap the provincial land tax for first-time buyers and seniors. That alone will save the average family about $13,500. We'll also get rid of development charges that can add up to $170,000 to the cost of a home. Instead, we'll create a Better Communities Fund to support smart growth. And if you're renting, we've got your back too. We'll bring in strong rent control and set up rental emergency support funds to stop unfair evictions, because everyone deserves a safe and affordable place to call home.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
I drive a lot. I'm in sales. So believe me when I say traffic in Durham is getting worse by the day, and no one seems to have a plan to fix it. People are spending more time stuck in traffic and less time with their families. That's got to change. The Ontario Liberals will look at every option to make sure taxpayers get the best bang for their dollar, whether it's expanding the GO train service or making regional transit more reliable. Look, I'm not a career politician. I'm a regular guy who thinks Durham deserves better, and I want Durham to be heard at Queen's Park for a change. A vote for me as our MPP means I'll be in people's faces every day to make sure we get the change and the services we deserve. Better health care, affordable housing, and a way to get to work where you're not staring at somebody's bumper the whole time. I think at the end of the day, a vote for the Ontario Liberals is a vote for better Ontario.
My name's James Leventakis, and I'm with the New Blue Party.
What do you think the key priority issues are in your riding in this election campaign?
Housing, the drug epidemic, bringing jobs, local jobs, to the community. so that there's less travel needed, which would take traffic off our roads. Those are probably the big ones that I've heard speaking to constituents. It'd be nice if there was if the government would push working from home, that would take traffic off the roads. That'd be nice to see. It worked during the lockdowns. I'm not for lockdowns, but it did work for those. So if it's available for certain companies, it'd be nice to have that availability for them. And maybe there'd be some sort of push from the government to have people work from home when available and applicable. Those are the big ones that I think that I've heard from people.
If the U.S. puts more tariffs into effect, how would you want the government to respond?
Government of Ontario and Canada are very dependent on the U.S. and they should be less dependent. It's just like any other business who puts all their eggs in one basket. They've got one big client or one big customer. It doesn't work in the long term because if something happens to them, you go down with them. So we have a lot of products in this province and in this country that more of the world wants, and I think that we should push it and push that product to the rest of the world. I did some research before coming in, and in 2022, 85% of our exports were to the U.S. from the province. 2023, Canada's exports were 71% to the U.S. And I understand we're close in proximity, so it's easy to sell to them, but we can't be that dependent on them. With regime changes, the government changes as it just did in the States, and now we're having these issues. This wouldn't be a concern if we had a broader base of customers that we were selling to. So I think that's where we need to put our priorities, is maximizing the number of customers and not be dependent on one customer or one export base.
It's estimated that 2.5 million people in the province do not have a family doctor. How would you fix the shortage?
This one hits home because my doctor is actually moving away. She's moving an hour away, so now I've got to decide if I'm going to follow her and travel an hour every time I have to see her or not. But we need to make it desirable for doctors to want to come here. Right now, the doctors in Ontario are capped based on the number of customers that they can, or patients they can bill to the province. No one wants to hear privatizing medical, but it is a reality. If you have the funds available, you can drive down to the States and get medical treatment right away, not having to wait. So we already have privatized medical. I think that if we allow it to happen in Ontario and allow doctors to make more money, then they will be more apt to want to come to Ontario to practice medicine. Also, taxes are a big thing. The federal government had put forth an increase in the capital gains tax. Well, when doctors come here and build their practice up, if they want to sell that practice later on, the capital gains is punitive to them. So you don't want to hit them with high taxes. So if we could eliminate taxes, not eliminate fully, but not make it punitive, where if they build up a profitable practice and sell it, they're hit with high capital gains taxes. You don't want to have that. So I just think that we need to make it so it's a profitable place for them to come and practice, whatever way that means. If it means that we lower taxes for them, or if we allow them to bill more than they're billing now, that will attract doctors.
With housing prices and homelessness at an all-time high, what would you do to make housing more accessible?
Supply and demand states that the more houses there are available, the cost will go down. So whether that's building houses or making apartments available, we can decrease the cost of rent by making more rental units available. Right now, the Landlord-Tenant Board is backed up with landlords trying to evict tenants who haven't paid. I have a client who has a tenant who hasn't paid in over 2 years. They're still trying to get that tenant out of the building. If we were to make the Landlord-Tenant Board tribunal more fair or not as skewed towards the tenant, but make it feasible for someone to put an apartment in their house, then we'd be able to have more units available. I have a space in my house that my wife and I had thought about renting out as an apartment in our basement, but we're worried that we might come across a professional tenant that will take us years to remove, and then we tie up all that money for nothing, and we're just not ready to do that. So I think if we make the landlord-tenant board a more fair practice where a tenant or a landlord is able to remove a tenant who's not paying or who's causing damage, then we can bring the rents down. It's a scary thing to think that you've tied up a bunch of money that you've saved up into a house, and someone's living there and you can't get them out, and the bank comes and takes that house from you. It's scary, and I can understand why there's not as many rental units available as we need.
What would you do to ease transit issues in the region?
Creating jobs in the riding where people wouldn't have to travel would help alleviate the traffic and the congestion on the 400 series of highways. I understand that highway is expensive. I don't use it, or I try not to use it very often because of the cost. I've taken toll roads in the U.S., and they're a small percentage of the cost of what the 407 is. The 407 is a business, and it has to make money, and it obviously feels that the rate they're charging per kilometer is the right one for them, and the highway is pretty busy itself, so obviously people are okay paying that. But the province has to look at whether or not the cost of everything being slowed down on these highways outweighs the cost of making that highway free. There was a study by the Canadian Centre for Economic Analysis that reported the cost of congestion in the GTHA was $12.8 billion in 2024. So if that cost of congestion is higher than the cost of making the highway free, then I say make the highway free, while you look at other options, whatever they are, for cutting down on the use of highways by keeping jobs local, or building another highway, whatever that option is, or widening the highways we have. I think we need to be proactive versus reactive. The number of lanes in the highways is just now starting to increase, whereas the number of people using them has increased significantly over the last 20, 30 years. So find ways to get people to stay off the highways, and we'll reduce the traffic.
Here are the candidates who did not participate.